Attention, you're listening to The Todd Huff Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk and education. Be advised, the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. And now, coming to you from the Full Suite Wealth Studios, here's your conservative but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
All right, my friends, I've been thinking about this, and, as we head into the 2026 midterm elections, which it's hard to believe. Look, time flies, especially, my friends, when you tune into this program. We make it go even faster here in the studio when you tune into this program every day, but we are moving very quickly towards the 2026 midterm election. And look, we have to figure out a way. I'm all in on this with my own personal reservations when it comes to individual candidates that I may not be in favor of, but all things being considered equal, I'm all in on trying to help the Republicans win as many seats as possible here in 2026. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the state of the campaign. I want to talk about just what's happening out there, as we always do in the news cycle as well. If you want to be part of the conversation, I welcome you to join us. You can, to share your thoughts and opinions. Always, my friends, included with the appropriate amounts of adoration and praise for yours. Truly, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to reach out here. I'm kidding, but it is always nice when people are kind. But hey, do what you got to do. 317-785-1030. That's the number here. You can text 317-785-1030. You can always email Todd at toddhuffshow.com. Ever notice how some families seem to have a plan that lasts for generations? Well, that is not by accident. Full Suite Wealth works with people who want their wealth to make a difference for years to come. Their team brings together high-level investment strategies like private equity, private credit, and option strategies, all coupled with expert legal guidance. It's all about making sure your vision becomes a reality for the people you love today and tomorrow. If you're looking to do more than just manage money, if you want to leave your mark and build something lasting, take a look at Full Suite Wealth. Jason and his team will take great care of you over there. FullSuiteWealth.com is the website. Again, FullSuiteWealth.com. Build your legacy. Secure your future. Okay, so you may have seen some stories on this race in in Maine, where virtually everything that could go wrong in a campaign has gone wrong for the Democrat candidate in Maine. His name is Graham Platner. He is... we've got sexting scandals. We've got, he's the guy that had a Nazi tattoo on his chest, literally a Nazi tattoo on his chest. He said he didn't know what it was. But it's just one thing after another. There are reports out there, some whisperings around the political world that there is more to come regarding his candidacy. So there are problems for the Democrat Party, and it is quite telling, if you ask me, how quickly the left is to call you and me a Nazi, a fascist, and all of that, when they quite literally have a candidate on the ballot in Maine who has, this is an exaggeration, this isn't hyperbole, this is not metaphor. He literally has a Nazi tattoo on his chest, I believe. This has been uncovered in pictures and so forth. Of course, he simply says he didn't realize that that's what it was or some such things. Here's a headline in the New York Post. Democrats spooked that Graham Platner has more skeletons in his closet. It's a certainty, reads the headline here. Buckle up. Beltway Democrats are quietly bracing for more politically damaging details to emerge on embattled Maine Senate hopeful Graham Platner and fretting that he could jeopardize their already narrow path to retaking the Senate this cycle. It's not a possibility that more will come out. It's a certainty. Someone who behaves like this almost never behaves like this in isolation. I'm sure there's a pattern of this kind of behavior he's had throughout his life. A Democratic staffer said on Capitol Hill, told the Post. I'm sure more will come out in terms of his relationships with women, and he's an embarrassment to the party. I just want to spend a moment here, and I want to reach across the aisle to my Democrat friends. Listen, I know that we don't agree on a lot of things. We don't agree on policy. We don't agree on worldview. Democrats today, more than likely, have at least adopted the worldview that socialism is at least something that they should play footsies with. Socialism is good to some degree. This is what I don't want you to think I believe that. Socialism is absolutely wicked and evil, my friends. It does not accomplish anything it tells us it sets out to accomplish. Instead, it makes the equality that it seeks an equality of misery. It is not the way to build an economy. It is not a way to live as a free people. But nonetheless, there are many on the left in the Democrat Party today that at least want to stick it to the rich. I've never understood this idea, sticking it to anybody. I think that should have ended, that mindset, if you ever had it. I think it should have ended in high school. I think that you need to grow up. I think that you can look at someone and think, man, I don't agree with how they live their lives. I don't agree with the choices that they make, but I don't want to stick it to them unless, of course, they've broken the law. And by stick it to them, which is still not a term I would use, stick it to them is about revenge. Revenge, listen, justice is not about revenge or causing harm. It's about making someone pay for the damage that they have done. It is the fulfillment. It's just for circumstances to require payment for penalty, not as a way to watch it gleefully for them to suffer or to get back at them and that sort of thing. But this is how so many people think. It's a very, very terrible way to live one's life, and I discourage anyone from thinking that way. But the left and the Democrat Party has embraced this in ways that I find reprehensible. And then, of course, we have degrees in the Democrat Party. We have moderate, liberal, and then we have the extreme radical leftists. The problem is that these leftists have taken over your party. I've been through this in great detail. I don't want to spend too much time here, but that is a problem. And I know that we have some fundamental differences. I try to persuade. I try to explain my ideas on this program every day. I don't try. I do that. Let me just say that we actively do that. We explain our ideas and articulate what we believe on this program. And the left doesn't like it, and that's okay. I don't expect there to be multitudes of leftists who say nice things to me. I don't care about that. What I care about is just how totally enraged and blinded by that rage the left is. Not because, again, it matters to my life personally, but it does matter to my country. It does set the tone for how we have to operate as human beings here. And I'm here to tell you, if you're on the political left, if you're a Democrat, I hope you lose. I do. Not because I want you to suffer, but because I don't want your ideology to thrive. I don't want to see socialism take root. I don't want to see the radical left's version of goodness and truth and there's no version of truth, but you know what I mean. What they present as truth, which is that men can be women, and that taking the life of an unborn child is simply birth control. It's just a choice that a woman should be able to have. They hammer these ideas. It's not even an idea. They hammer in language into the psyche of women, of American voters, and they slowly but surely, drip, 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 convince people, not through argumentation, but through the subtleties of the use of language and those sorts of things, to get people to buy something that is, in some cases, absolutely wicked and evil, and the left has done that. Now, you might have problems with candidates on the right side of the aisle. I sometimes do. I've been through this until I'm blue in the face, my friends, multiple times. I have said, no matter what group you are part of, no matter what your particular favorite candidate or your favorite baseball team, your favorite sport, your favorite whatever it is, your favorite group of people, within those groups, I don't care if it's church people or atheists, you will find people who are doing things they shouldn't be doing. This is called sin. This is what the Bible calls sin. And the Bible says all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. It is certainly reprehensible. Sin is wicked and evil no matter where it happens. And it bothers me when I see it happening specifically in Christian circles. But if we're all honest, sin is everywhere. There will be people who are Democrats who do bad things morally and ethically. There will be Republicans who do bad things morally and ethically, that sort of thing. There'll be people in church, people who are will never step foot in a church, and everybody in between that will be doing things they should not be doing. This is just the way that it is. It is our fallen state. It is just reality. So there's going to be problems with individual candidates across the aisle. So I'm not going to go here and say that Platner here is Graham Platner is in some way a typical Democrat. Now, I will say this. There is one caveat to what I just said. If the group that you choose to be a part of, if it rejects truth and goodness, if it embraces evil and wickedness, and if it calls that thing or those things good, wickedness, woe to him who calls evil good. If it does that, then there will, of course, be a higher probability that individual people within a group are doing things that are wicked and evil, because it's no longer just that we're battling our desires, our selfish ambitions, and that sort of thing. And it now becomes something where you've said these things are good. I'm justified in pursuing those things. And there's an element here. Let me say this of the Democrat Party that has become that. It has not become that in the Republican Party. Now, again, that doesn't mean there's not individual problems and that sort of thing. But the point is that the radical left wing of the Democrat Party has basically said anything is good. Everything is acceptable under the sun. Everything is good. We're just living our truths, all these sorts of things. Some things that, are shocking to the average conservative person if you hear some of the behaviors and things that are condoned, allowed, accepted within the Democrat Party. The left, well, maybe a bigger faction than I'm suggesting here, but a faction of the Democrat Party, those things are considered acceptable, or they're at least not a problem, right? And so I find myself wondering, because even what I just said is true, right? There's a faction of the Democrat Party that anything goes. It doesn't matter right, wrong. They don't care. What they do care about is winning elections, and this is where they differ more from conservatives. Conservatives certainly care about winning elections, but they're bothered more by legitimate I would say stories like this about Graham Platner, they're more problematic for a Republican candidate, and the left knows this. Now, the left has tried to stir this stuff up and build a case against President Donald Trump, and it has never taken root. And the left is scratching their heads because they think that they have effectively made this guy the most wicked and evil person to ever walk the earth, basically. And it's not taken for conservatives. See, this usually is what happens. Usually what happens when they find a conservative, a Republican that they don't like, they, the media, they, the Democrat Party, they, the 7 pillars of propaganda, the leftist running society in this country who are pulling the strings in entertainment and science and all these sorts of things, they collude with one another to effectively take down a conservative. Now, this typically happens with just media attention. If the media can promote or talk about stories that are embarrassing, sometimes true, sometimes not, made up insinuations and so forth, sometimes accurate, by the way. They can talk enough about it. It intimidates a conservative. It sends a message. It sends a message that says, you better not support an agenda that the left doesn't like, or they're going to come even harder for you. They're going to try to destroy you personally and harm your business and family and all these other things. And that's enough. That pressure's enough for a lot of conservatives, even sometimes well-meaning conservatives. I get it, right? That's enough for them to say, man, I can't risk these things. I can't risk my family, my business. And I understand that. I'm sympathetic to that. I also feel it's necessary to point out, as a guy that's done this now for almost 11 years, who's sacrificed a lot to do this. You may not see it. I don't need you to see it. That's not what this is about. But what I am here to say is that there's a dramatic difference between the types of politicians we see today far too many times and the people who signed the Declaration of Independence. We're about to celebrate America's 250th birthday here in a little over a month, right? July 4th, 1776 is the founding of this country. July 4th, 2026 will be America's 250th birthday. It's a remarkable thing to think about that America is turning 250. But those men signed that document. The signers signed the document and they put their names to the parchment where it said, the last line, we mutually pledge to one another our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Today, we have people who say, I'll do everything I can until it costs me something. I get it. I'm a human being. I understand. I understand that you don't want to have things taken from you because of political opposition. And it's a shame that that's happening, that there's a risk of that happening in this nation today. But real leadership looks that in the eye and says there are some things that are more important. I wish that more. I think we need a modern Declaration of Independence. And Matt, that may be something that people should think about as we hit the 250th anniversary birthday of this country. That may be something for us to think about. And I know immediately a lot of people don't want anything to do with that. A lot of people hear the conversation. A lot of people hear the issues discussed. A lot of people are totally fine with agreeing with what is being said on this program, nodding in agreement. How couldn't you, by the way? But when it comes to personally having to make a stand, it's different. It's one thing to cheer for President Trump when he tells the media basically what's up. It's one thing to cheer for someone who's taking to a microphone or speaking at a public rally and basically taking all of the arrows. It's another thing altogether to take them. It's another thing to even support the person openly in certain environments. This is how really bad things happen, by the way, right? You have a situation. I think back, yesterday we had Lieutenant Governor Micah Beckwith on this program. We talked a little bit about Germans and the Nazis and Dietrich Bonhoeffer back during World War II. And you would think in hindsight, everybody today thinks that they would be Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Everybody thinks, well, I would have stood up to the Nazis and I would have been in the corner with Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Why? Why do people think that? Why? I mean, how many people today, and I'm sorry if I'm stepping on any, I'm not sorry, but I might step on toes. How many people today will listen to this program, listen to other programs, agree with conservative thought, agree with the premise that things have to change dramatically in this country in order for us to save this nation, but think, man, I can't say that at work. Oh boy, I can't say that at work. I'll get myself in trouble. I can't say that at school because they don't let me do it. They'll say that I'm going to get in trouble for that, and it's just easier to not do it. And we slowly but surely begin to make excuses to where what needs to be done is never allowed to happen. And that's exactly the opposite mindset that our founders had. The founders made a pledge, and some of them paid dearly, by the way. They pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. We need a version of that here again in 2026. And as I think about it here, as I'm talking, there may not be a better time than now to do it, given the just the reality, I guess the symbolism of the time of year. So we need more conservatives to stand up, to be strong, to be counted, and to not be afraid. To not be afraid. Fear is an intimidating thing for people. What if they call me but they're going to call you bad names. I get called bad names on this program every day. I literally don't care. And I'll tell you that too. You will care less the more that you do it. You build up an insulation to it. Friends, let's face it, living with discomfort is tough. And while prescription medications can help, they often come with a long, long list of side effects, not to mention the risk of dependency. That's why people are exploring natural options like Kratom from Christopher's Organic Botanicals. It's a family-run company. They do things the right way. They work directly with Indonesian farmers and lab test every batch to make sure it is clean and it is not a synthetic. It has no garbage. There's no synthetics. There's no chemicals. There's no surprises. Just natural, honest kratom leaf that's been used for generations. The problem, as I've shared before, comes from the synthetic blends and contaminated junk that's pushed by these shady sellers. Christopher's keeps it real. They keep it clean. They keep you informed. You can start with their Kratom Starter Pack. Coupon code ToddHuff saves you 10%. Visit Christopher'sOrganicBotanicals.com. That's Christopher'sOrganicBotanicals.com. Truth, tradition, transparency. And yes, time out for me, my friends. Back in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. Been talking here today about the state of this campaign, this 2020 midterm elections. It's very, very important. We were talking about, of course, the candidates and what's going on, specifically with Graham Platner, but also with what's happening, just what happens a lot of times within a political party, within a group. I mentioned that no matter who the group is, there are always people within a group doing things they shouldn't be doing. But sometimes there are groups that are predicated and founded upon ideas and concepts that actually encourage them all to be doing things that they shouldn't be doing because they've abandoned morality and goodness and truth, and they have inserted a lie. They have decided they're going to try to rework and recreate life as we know it, the definitions of good and evil. This is what we see from the godless, radical left wing of the Democrat Party. And as we think about combating this and fighting this, it's going to take all hands on deck. And I may have stepped on some toes a little bit here today, and I said I apologize. I don't apologize. Sorry, not sorry. Listen, you and I have the opportunity. This Reagan said freedom is always only one generation away from extinction. We have no guarantee that what we have here will be passed on to the next generation. Liberty is always under assault, always, 100% of the time. And what's interesting is it can be defended if enough people decide they're going to stand up for it. That's what our nation was, again, founded upon. There's this concept that said, we are the people, we the people, right in the Constitution. We're going to tell you, government, what you can do. And we're also going to tell you what some of our rights are, the rights that we retain, the rights that we got not from you, but from our Creator. That's how this country was set up. And it takes a lot of people willing to stand up and secure those rights, because the tyrants are always on the lookout. The tyrants are always looking to manipulate the people, to control the people, to assume more power, to take away the liberties of individual people. And, ultimately, we can't just sit back and be consumers of this. I love that you listen to this program. I love that you that people tune in to understand the ideas and the concepts. But this cannot be merely an intellectual exercise. This must be taken. The ideas that are presented in this program, that are presented in a conservative environment, truly a conservative platform, whatever that might be, a conservative school, a conservative, just a group of conservatives on campus, whatever. You have to have the core set of beliefs, and it's not enough to just have them. You have to then do something with it. And it's amazing to me sometimes how little people realize that the person looking back at them from the mirror is involved in this process. I know people, we all know people who hear something, who say, that sounds right. I think that should change that, what I just heard, maybe at a sermon, for example. Maybe what I just learned through listening to a program like this, or whatever, listening to a candidate speak, or listening to just thinking about things, and logically, maybe you've read a book. Philosophically, you say, this makes sense. I need to implement this. That's the whole magic, right? Is the implementation process. Too many people sit back and think, I could do that, right? I could do a better job. But you have the opportunity, right? You have the opportunity to do something with the information that you have, that we have. We all have this ability. Yes, it might be difficult. It might be hard. It might be challenging. It might be intimidating. Maybe it's terrifying for some people. But until we are all actively pushing in the roles that we should be filling here, we're all different. Nobody's called to do the same exact thing. But as we continue to push in the direction we should be pushing, we should realize that none of us simply play the role of observer, as a fan in the stands. There's sometimes when I coach basketball. In fact, we just yesterday had open gym. The month of June in the state of Indiana is a time when teams can get together. So in this case, varsity girls sports. I have two daughters. Well, we have a son too, but he's actually graduating, and he's not. He doesn't participate in high school sports. But our girls would like to. I don't know if I've shared with you. Of course, we homeschool. There's a rule in the IHSAA that says homeschooled kids can participate in their local public schools sports program if they take one course at the school each day. I have lobbied our school board here, actually spoke at a meeting about a month ago, talking about this and requesting that they consider the policy, answering some questions that I was, that people were, that they had the night of the meeting and so forth. So I've been pushing for this, but in the meantime, I don't know where that's going to end up, but I will tell you this. We are, it's time for teams to be able to start practicing. They've got the month of June, basically, that they can do that. And yesterday we had open gym. We ran a little bit of some drills and that sort of thing. Had a small group because the program's going through a transition here, and the coach is not able to, the head coach is not able to participate at the full level. So a friend of mine named Desmond is helping we're helping to coach the program. And I've said to girls before, I didn't say this yesterday because it wasn't the environment, but I've said this in games before when I've coached, that you cannot become an observer, right? When the ball, I see it happen a lot. It's like there's activity. Someone puts up a shot and the ball's bouncing around, and some people suddenly become observers. They become casual fans, forgetting that they have the ability to run over there, to get into the mix, the scrum, and to fight for the basketball. You could say this about any sport, of course. I said it in soccer as well. There are no, you got to remain a participant. You're on the court. You're not on the bench. You're not in the stands. You can do something about it. And that's the message that I would like for conservatives to hear. You can do something about this. Yes, you are one and you are only one. And as the old poem says, you can't do everything, but you can do something. And I hope you'll take the next part of that poem to heart. It says, but that which I can do, I will do. And that which I will do, by God's strength, I will give credit. There are things that we can do. There are certainly things that are outside of our control. Obviously, there are things that are well outside our control. Sometimes, in fact, I would say that we have the illusion that maybe we have control over too much. There are so many factors in this world. In fact, as a Christian, it's one of the things, if I can be transparent with you, that God's been working with me on in the past several months or years even, to say you don't control everything. You need to do what I've commanded you to do. You need to control the things that you might be able to control, at least influence them, and then leave the rest up to God. In fact, I've learned that from a Christian perspective, a perspective of following Christ, that sometimes my desire for control is really a lack of faith in Him, a lack of trust in Him and His ability, which is ridiculous, right? I mean, my ability is limited. I'm just a man. I'm just a mere man who, can do some things, but certainly not have control. But we can influence, and we need to be involved in the things that we should be doing. We better be about the business of doing, as this nation is truly burning down around us. So I think some people need to hear that I'm not in control of everything as an individual. Other people need to hear that there's more that we should be actively doing. We can't just sit back and be passive, casual observers. When we're on the playing field, right, we're in the midst of the battle. There are things that we can do, and we should be doing them and leaving those things we can't control up to God to deal with, because there's certain things obviously we can't control. Friends, think about this for a moment. Your investments are like seeds you plant. They grow, they multiply, but are they bearing the kind of fruit you want? At 4-8 Financial, they believe your money should reflect your values. They specialize in wealth management and biblically responsible investing, screening out companies that do not align with your faith and your values. It's all part of their purpose-centered financial planning, helping you live a life of meaning and purpose. If you want to see if your investments align with your current values, or to what degree they do, you're able to do that. You can do that by visiting 48financial.com/Todd. Again, 48financial.com/Todd. There you can complete a quick and easy, very quick assessment that will help you see to what degree your investments align with your values. 4-8 Financial, they're here to worry about your money so you don't have to. I've got to take a break, my friends. Back in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. We have something special here in this country. And as I've been thinking about this during the break, as I think about these things a lot. And I know a lot of you are like this. I'm sometimes, maybe a lot of times, if I'm being honest, a bit of a procrastinator. And what I mean by that is I just sometimes I don't feel like I'm quite ready to start a project, and that can mean a number of things, but For me, it often means something with this program or something that I want to share or an idea that I have. I'm a perfectionist, and I don't, please hear me say this, I don't say that to make it sound like that's not a good thing. Being a perfectionist is not a good thing. Being a perfectionist actually gets in the way of a lot of good things. So I'm not proud of that. Some people might be. Some people might say I'm a perfectionist and nothing's good enough for me. That's not what I mean. I mean, sometimes I wrestle with stuff and think about things, and instead of taking the next step, I think, let me work that out a little bit more. Let me get pen to paper. And of course, there's a time to do that. I'm not saying that there's not. But sometimes it stops me from taking the first step. And as someone who's also like a doer, it creates this major conflict in me. I really have a drive to do it, but I also have the drive that says it's not perfect yet, and it prohibits me from doing it. And I have to get past that. We have to get past that. In fact, I'll be honest, doing this program is probably the single greatest thing that's helped me do that. Because what happens is, when it's time to do the show, I got to do the show. And I might think, you know what, I'd like to read a little bit more about that. I'd like to formulate some thoughts on that a little bit more. You could always do that. That's the danger of something like this. You can always do something a little bit better. But you got to, when it's time to go, you've got to go. When the opportunity presents itself, you have to be ready. And I don't say that from a position of fear or the fear of missing out or something like that. I'm just saying from a position of reality, right? From a calm position of reality, we all should be able to realize that we have something very special in this nation. And again, as I've said before, this nation is special not because of the individual people in it, though we've had incredible people. The nation is special because of the ideas we have embraced. We have embraced ideas that are consistent with how God created the universe. Now, we're not perfect. Hear me say that. I'm under no illusion that we are perfect. This country has made some terrible mistakes and had some terrible things in her history. And I'm not here to gloss over any of that, but this nation also was built upon some incredibly good things, some incredibly good ideas about the ideas about liberty, the idea that you're a citizen and not a subject, the idea that your rights come from a creator, not from some government. We don't have second-class citizens. You have the ability to live in accordance with your preferences. You can decide who you worship. If you worship, you decide what you say, what you think. These things are wonderful. We live in a free society. Of course, it's always under pressure. There's always pressure from the tyrants to take that away. But we have this. And we have this in this nation. And it's under assault. And you can point to specific areas where it's like, yikes, we've reached a breaking point. I don't deny any of that. But this nation as founded, with her commitment to defending our rights as given to us by our Creator, is something absolutely remarkable. And it's led to tremendous results and blessings and prosperity. In fact, so much prosperity that the world has benefited from the United States of America. But if I'm right, and newsflash, I am here, the ideas that we have embraced that make this nation great, if that's really how this happened, if we became great because of our ideas, then it only stands to reason if we deviate from those ideas, if we turn from those ideas, that we will eventually completely cease being great, but we'll at least begin to fall from that greatness. And that is where we are. We're on a downward trajectory, and I don't mean that towards this administration. I mean over the past 50 years, whatever. You can pick a time. Everybody's got a different idea on when the timetable began as to when this nation began to move away from the ideas that made her great. But if we eventually move too far from those ideas, we will lose our greatness, eventually sacrificing it completely. And that's what I don't want to see. And that's what's within our control. You know, you have a sphere of influence. You have people who listen to you, respect you, or at least that you can have some sort of influence or impact on. And we have to start there. We have to live out these beliefs. We have to handle our interpersonal communications the right way. We have to treat people the correct way. We need to return to Jesus more than anything. If you want to ask me the single biggest thing keeping this nation from fixing itself, it's that we've turned, many of us anyway, have turned our backs on Jesus, and not even just ignoring him, but to the point where we are endorsing the very things that God in the Bible tells us we shouldn't be doing. So there's a lot to unpack there, but it involves us and our participation. But I've got to run. Friends, thanks for listening. Have a great day. SDG.